Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Pearson, your elementary ELL teacher. Today we're going to focus on Chapter 8 from Bud Not Buddy, vocabulary words 1 to 5. I have another lesson that focuses on the words 6 to 10. So check that out as well. So for this lesson, you will need a pencil and a piece of paper or journal page. You're going to divide the paper into 3 equal parts or thirds, 1, 2, 3. And you could do that by drawing 2 lines like I show here. Then you're going to write numbers 1 to 5. And for each of the numbers, you are going to write the vocabulary word or expression or phrase. Then in the second column, you're going to write the synonym. And a synonym is a word that means the same or is similar. Just like combine is a synonym for mix. They mean similar things. They're synonyms. If you don't catch the synonym, which I will have written for you, or the short definition, you can always write the vocabulary word a second time. In the third column, I want you to draw a quick picture or sketch to help you remember each of the 5 words. If at any time I'm going too fast, you can always push pause, write your words and synonym and picture, and then get caught up. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to review all 5 words as well, so there'll be another slide to review all the words, synonyms, and pictures. Our learning target, I can use pictures and context clues to help me understand descriptive language like similes, metaphors, and idioms from Chapter 8 of Bud Not Buddy. Success criteria, that means how will you know you're successful? Well, here are our steps for success. I will, number 1, write down each vocabulary word or idiom. 2, write a synonym or short definition for each word. 3, listen and follow along to each quote from the chapter. Look for the vocabulary word or idiom. And then 4, go back and draw a quick sketch for each word or idiom. All right. So listen here. It says Bud uses a lot of figurative language when he talks. Figurative language versus literal language. You see the man running. Figurative language, you could say he ran like the wind. Literal language would be he ran fast. So listen to this page. A simile is a comparison of 2 things using the words like or as. So here's our example. His face lit up like a light bulb when he figured out the math problem. So was his face a light bulb? No, this is figurative language. His face lit up like a light bulb when he figured out the math problem. Here is our quote. Right when I was ready to push the covers off of me and start running and stabbing, whoever it was that had been watching jumped right on top of me. I was trapped as a roach under a dish rag. This is what Bud said. So what does it mean I was trapped as a roach under a dish rag? So Bud is comparing himself as someone who's trapped, just like this mouse is in a trap. He was trapped like or as a roach under a dish rag. So this is figurative language. He was trapped as a roach under a dish rag. Here's another example of figurative language. I was thinking, Deeza's mama was right. Someone who doesn't know who their family is like dust blowing around in a storm. They don't really belong to any one place. So Bud is comparing himself or someone who doesn't know who their family is. They're like a dust storm. So Deeza's mama was right. Someone who doesn't know who their family is like dust blowing around in a storm. They don't really belong any one place. So here's another form of figurative language. Hyperbole. A hyperbole is an extreme exaggeration used for emphasis. For example, there is a ton of food on the table. A ton of food on the table. So here's an example of a hyperbole. When I tried to talk, it felt like I had to suck all the air out of Flint. I finally got breathing right and said, "Doggone it, Bugs, it is me. You nearly scared me to death, Bud." So he's saying that he was so scared that in order for him to when he tried to talk, it felt like he had to suck all the air out of Flint, Michigan. So that's an exaggeration, and it's also a simile because it was like he had to suck out all the air out of Flint. So another example of figurative language is an idiom. An idiom is a saying that has a completely different meaning than the actual words themselves. For example, it's raining cats and dogs, so take your umbrella. So here's our first word that you're going to write, or first idiom, scared to death. So for number 1, write scared to death, scared to death. And what does scared to death means? Let's read it. Extremely afraid. So in the first column, write scared to death. And an idiom or short definition could be, or not an idiom, a synonym could be extremely afraid, or just write afraid. Scared to death means you're very afraid or extremely afraid. I'm scared to death of spiders. I hate them. Scared to death. When someone is scared to death of something, he or she is extremely afraid of that thing. Scared to death. What are you scared to death of? So think about that. What are you scared to death of? What are you extremely afraid of? All right, number 2. Number 2, right? Number 2 is close call. Close call. Close call means to nearly miss or escape a big problem or disaster. Close call. So write close call. Here are some picture examples of close call, like the bug almost got chopped by the axe. The man almost fell into the hole. That was a close call. And then this dinosaur sees a meteor that fell to Earth and says, "That was a close call." So Bugs looked like he knew he'd just had a real close call. He said, "I'm sorry, Bud. I didn't mean to scare you." Oh, I think I said Bud. It's Bugs looked like he knew he'd had a real close call. He said, "I'm sorry, Bud. I didn't mean to scare you." So close call means to nearly miss something, a big disaster. Close call. All right, number 3, hoodlum. 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 What is a hoodlum? It's a bad guy that lives in the hood, or hood comes from the word neighborhood. A bad guy that lives in the neighborhood or hood. That's why they call the person a hoodlum. So it's the bad guy that lives in the neighborhood or the hood. So here's our quote. Todd, looked real scared, then told his mama to keep me away from him. They even said I was a hoodlum, Bud. So for number 3, write hoodlum. A synonym or a shorter definition could be bad guy that lives in the hood or the neighborhood. All right, listen. Bug spit a big glob in his hand. I spit a big glob in my hand and said, "We're brothers forever, Bugs." Bugs. So here's Bud Caldwell and Bugs, and they spit into their hand and shook hands, just like this GIF I have, this video short clip. And after they spit into their hands and shook hands, they were brothers forever. All right, so number 4 for chapter 8, riding the rails, riding the rails. So write riding the rails for number 4. And here's our quote, or no, not the quote. Here's the definition, riding the train for free. And they also are doing it illegally, meaning not legal. So at the height of the Great Depression, more than 250,000 teenagers, or 250,000 teenagers, were living on the road in America, many crisscrossing the country by illegally hopping freight trains or riding the rails. So they did this by being very sneaky, and they had to run away from the police, riding the rails. So make sure you wrote number 4, riding the rails, which would be riding the train for free illegally. And they did that so that they could travel for free all across the United States. All right, this is our last vocabulary word or expression, mouth organ. Number 5, mouth organ. What is a mouth organ? It's a silver musical instrument that you play with your mouth, and what we call a harmonica. Today we call a mouth organ a harmonica, but back in the Depression they called it a mouth organ. And an organ is like electronic piano. So here's our quote. We could tell we were getting closer to Hooperville because we heard someone playing a mouth organ and the smell of food getting stronger. Bud. So there's an example or a picture of someone playing the harmonica or mouth organ. Make sure you wrote mouth organ. A synonym would be harmonica or silver musical instrument. And now it's time to check your work. For chapter 8, words 1 to 5. Number 1, scared to death. Extremely afraid, fearful, scared to death. Number 2, close call. To nearly miss or escape a big problem or disaster. And notice I highlighted a synonym in yellow. So scared to death, you could write afraid or fearful. Close call, you could write escape or nearly miss. Hoodlum means a bad guy that lives in the hood or neighborhood. So I highlighted bad guy and hood. 4, riding the rails, jumping on and riding the train for free. I highlighted riding the train. And mouth organ, a silver instrument that you play with your mouth, a harmonica. And I highlighted harmonica. So if you need to, push pause. Make sure that you have written 1 through 5, scared to death, close call, hoodlum, riding the rails, and mouth organ. And then in the second column, make sure you write a short definition or synonym. And in the third column, draw a quick picture or sketch. And then when you're ready to join us, push play. So it's time to reflect on your learning. How well did you reach the learning target of I can use pictures and context clues to help me understand important words from the story Bud Not Buddy of chapter 8? Would you give yourself a 4? I could teach this lesson. I easily wrote all the vocabulary words with a synonym or short definition and quick sketch. 3, I wrote all the vocabulary words and idioms, wrote a synonym or definition, and drew a quick sketch for most of the words. 2, I wrote most of the vocabulary words and wrote some of the synonyms and pictures. Or 1, I wrote some of the vocabulary words and idioms, but did not write a synonym or a picture for each word. How do you think you did writing and illustrating the 5 words? 4, 3, 2, or 1. Write your reflection on the top. Thanks for doing the first 5 words with me from Chapter 8 of Bud Not Buddy. I have a second video that works on Chapter 8 vocabulary 6 through 10, so check that out if you can. Have a great day.